Hello, welcome to Europe and You. Coming up on the programme this time.
What infuriates me, shocks me, is it's a scandal, the way that these laws are being flouted.
Joanna Lumley tells the European Parliament it must uphold animal welfare laws. The Freedom Drive comes to Strasbourg.
And in the studio, can you keep a secret? How much access should governments have to our private conversations?
Plans to burn rubbish in Worcestershire go against EU law. That's the view of a local campaigner who's been petitioning the European Parliament. The government has already given the green light to the Hartlebury incinerator, but critics of the scheme insist they've not been given all the facts, which would have made it a fair fight.
We should have access to information on costs, access to participation in saying what sort of technologies, what should we use, whereas in actual fact this hasn't been the case. They've been kept completely secret, really. They've not been told what the costs of projects are. The whole contract is secret, so it's not possible for communities to be able to put forward greener and cheaper solutions which are readily available.
How can you have access to that democratic process if you don't have the same access to the information that the council have? How can you question whether they've made the right decision? How can you hold them accountable?
In a statement, Worcestershire County Council told us residents had been widely consulted about the scheme and said the only data which had not been publicly available relates to commercial information. The EU dictates that greener alternatives, such as recycling, must be considered above incineration or landfill. Critics of the incinerator claim that didn't happen in this case, but the council says it already recycles 43% and is working with local people to reduce waste further. The European Parliament, meanwhile, has left the petition open for further investigation. Joanna Lumley has been telling MEPs why animal welfare laws must be upheld. Since the beginning of this year, it's illegal for farmers to keep pregnant sows in cages. Other older European laws demand that pigs are kept in humane conditions, yet the rules are being broken. According to footage provided by Compassion in World Farming, there's evidence of cruelty right across Europe.
You can only go little by little with parliaments, but you've got to get a law made. What infuriates me, shocks me, is it's a scandal, the way that these laws are being flouted. It is a European Union directive, it is a law, and yet everybody flouts it. Why aren't they penalised?
The European Commission has warned 9 countries it will take them to court if they continue to break the law. MEPs want them to act faster.
If these countries are not complying and the farmers aren't complying, then take them to the courts and recommend some fines, because in the farming industry on the continent it appears that money is the only thing that's going to make a difference to the farmers' pockets.
Meanwhile, Nikki Sinclair argues that British farmers meeting the standards are losing out.
Our farmers and farmers across the UK are complying with these laws. That makes our products, pig products, much more expensive. Therefore, we've been undermined in the marketplace because these people who are not complying with the laws are selling their products for cheaper.
Now, if a farmer feels that by treating his animals well, he's somehow being sort of cheated, why would he feel that? I don't believe he does. I believe good farmers are good farmers, and the people who are sharks are getting away with it, and they deserve to have the law come down to them like a ton of bricks.
Still to come, plans to get a grip on alien species, and why people with disabilities say politicians are still failing them.
Do you ever get the feeling that you're being watched? Not just walking down the street perhaps, but also on your mobile phone or online. In fact, we now know that the American surveillance program, codenamed PRISM, has been checking up on all of us for years. European data protection laws and people's fundamental rights may have been broken in the process, according to the EU. Well, will the listening devices ever be switched off? Two British MEPs who've been following developments join me now, Liberal Democrat Sarah Ludford and Timothy Kirkhope from the Conservatives. And Timothy, turning to you first, is it right that the USA can listen in on all of us?
Well, I think obviously with modern communications and technology, an awful lot of people can listen to the phone activities and other activities of others. And that isn't just an allegation about the United States security services. It is actually an allegation which could rightfully put to terrorists, major criminals and others who owe us no favors and won't do us any good.
Is the price we have to pay for national security, Sarah Ludford, providing our material, knowing that our private data may not indeed be completely private? Is that just a price we're going to have to pay?
Well, we have to pay some price, certainly. Of course, it's true that we have to have reasonable powers for intelligence agencies. That there are weekly, if not daily, incidences of terrorism incidents around the world, and of course we must empower our secret services to be able to try and prevent them. The question is what is reasonable, and we have principles like necessity and proportionality in European human rights law about what it is appropriate for a democratic society to do. And what has been happening, of course, is a shift from sort of targeted surveillance to the collection of bulk data on everybody and without suspicion in order to try and find the needle in the haystack.
And is that a move is that too far for you? Is that too much information gathering from your point of view?
Well, I'm going to be a bit cautious, like Timothy, and say I want the facts established. I want to be able to trust the people who have oversight of the intelligence services.
And can you? Do you have
Well,
that
I
trust?
don't know whether I do. So I don't expect to know everything that the intelligence agencies do. That would be stupid. But I want to be able to trust the people who do know precisely what they're up to, that then spooks are not pushing their luck.
Can we trust our spooks?
I would hope we can trust them. Certainly, at the very least, we are democracies. We enjoy very large levels of freedom for people to express themselves and to do what they want to do, sort of freedom that repressive societies and indeed terrorists don't understand.
But every day, people in the general public, your constituents, will not expect that their mobile phones, that their emails are being read line by line.
I think this is all very well, but if you ask my constituents, what would be their priority here? Their priority would to be secure, to feel secure and feel that somebody is protecting them from the sort of threats that exist in the world today. Now, I think the balance, I agree with Sarah about this, there has to be a balance here. And I think that certainly I would not agree with just a general sort of run of intelligence gathering for no purpose. However, as I say, there may have been breaches here of some code or other. If that is the case, then I think the European Commission and national governments are the right people to be looking into this, rather than this inquiry which we have set up in the European Parliament.
That's right. In fact, there is this ongoing inquiry, isn't there, Sarah Ludford, in the European Parliament looking at this. Is there a value to that, do you think?
Well, yes, I do think there's a value to it in order to ask the questions of the right people and get the right people to be able either to check that the law is being obeyed or to suggest that if the law is too lax, that it needs tightening up.
I have to say to you that an awful lot of them are coming from a particular position because they are the people who want to use this inquiry as an airing for their particular view. I mean, really, we're not going to get, I don't think, anything, over the period we've been having this inquiry. I'm not convinced, actually, that we've really got to the nub of the problem at all. And I think that, therefore, the inquiry is just an exercise, in my view, of self-indulgence and also giving ourselves a position which we really don't have in terms of the Constitution.
OK.
No,
Sarah Ludford, it's self-indulgence of the European Parliament to engage in this committee.
I think that is a mistaken view. And
you have to agree to disagree on that point.
No, we don't agree about that. But I think that it is very important that we seek to establish whether EU law data protection law, and there are issues about the overseas transfer, including to the United States, of data, whether that is being observed, whether it's coming up against a clash with US jurisdiction, and then how we sort that out, and also whether the legal agreements we've made, particularly with the United States, like on transferring air passenger data, banking data and so on, whether they are being respected or whether there's a kind of backdoor access to the data which isn't regulated under the legal agreements.
So there are a lot of questions.
There are a lot of questions, and it's perfectly legitimate to ask them.
Okay, well, I think I really actually say that this is the problem. We seem to be writing into almost everything now various threats against deals and agreements that are actually starting to operate properly and well on the basis of our so-called suspicions or press reports or individuals with a gripe who might be of a particular view about the United States or a particular view about intelligence gathering and security issues.
So you're very sceptical about this whole area, really, that there are facts in this.
I'm very sceptical. What I am concerned about, obviously, is some kind of accountability. And I believe that there is, within our democracies, an accountability here. We need to pursue it through the correct channels, which is the Commission. But at the end of the day, security of people, their lives, their livelihoods, that is the paramount consideration. And I'm afraid it does mean from time to time a little bit of an invasion of privacy, a little bit of their liberty being taken away. But I do think, quite honestly, that is the balance, and that's it.
We'll have to leave it there. You have different points of view. It's very interesting to hear from both sides. We will hear back presumably from the European Commission, because they've asked a great number of questions. We also will hear from this committee in the European Parliament. So we'll keep track on this, and we'll hear back from both of you at a later stage. But thanks very much, both of you, for joining me.
Thank you.
They came from across Europe, from Spain, Germany, Ireland and Britain, to make their rights heard. The Freedom Drive has become a rally every 2 years for hundreds of people with disabilities to lobby the European Parliament.
The reason why there's not more of us is because disabled people are facing daily battles and daily barriers created not by their health impairment or their health condition, but by society.
So, having got the attention of at least some of the MEPs, how do you get disability pushed up the agenda?
We really need to sit down and work in partnership with government, with member states, to actually create some change, because whether you're a disabled person in the mainland of Europe or whether you're a disabled person in my home country of the UK, we're facing barriers that are pretty much the same.
Disabled people are often, because of lack of access and lack of accessible transport, invisible within their communities. We're considered to be a minority group that may or may not be important to our national government, whereas actually disabled people account for around 20% of Europe's population, and the Freedom Drive is an opportunity for us to demonstrate that we exist, that we matter and we have a voice, and to try and get our rights made reality.
Earlier this year, we heard on Europe in You about the dangers of plants and animals not native to the UK causing havoc. Well, now the European Commission has put forward plans for tackling the problem. The idea is to concentrate on 50 species at a time. The RSPB has branded the plans unambitious, but perhaps a step in the right direction. The southeast of England is often on the front line of species arriving from other parts of Europe. Local MEP Catherine Bearder explains why plant and animal invasions need to be taken seriously.
It's a threat not just to the wildlife but to agriculture and to our economy, and we have to be very careful. We have an international trade, not just within Europe, but of course a global trade, and things that come in containers and all those sorts of things we need to be aware of and be on guard to take action when we spot them.
Two MEPs, Godfrey Bloom and Mike Nattrass, have both left the UK Independence Party in recent weeks. Fellow MEP Stuart Agnew paid tribute to Godfrey Bloom's work, but his outlandish behaviour, particularly his comments about women, lost him the whip.
A line has to be drawn somewhere and Godfrey has crossed the line 2 or 3 times, and really he only has himself to blame for what's happened. We have to work as a team, and we can't keep having the distractions of having to defend the comments and really irrelevant outbursts of one particular person within the party.
Meanwhile, Mike Nattrass was not reselected to stand in the elections next year. UKIP's leadership dismissed his claims of cronyism as sour grapes, but he says it's not the end of his career.
Be sure that I'll be standing in the West Midlands come hell or high water, because I am angry, and I will stand, because I've been standing there now for 10 years. I try to look after the constituents, and I hope they appreciate that.
Well, that's all from this edition of Europe in You. Stay in tune with us via Facebook and Twitter. You can also find out about your MEPs and find interviews about them on the Europe in You app. But until the next time, thanks for watching. Goodbye.